If the thought of trying to parallel park with a driving examiner breathing down your neck and a queue of impatient drivers waiting as they tap their steering wheels makes you feel about as confident as a mouse next to some cats, then hopefully this video can help. This video will explain exactly how to do the parallel park, how to fix it when it goes wrong, and what's expected of you on the driving test. If you're practicing with a friend or family member in the UK, you must have insurance to stay legal. Marmalade specialise in young drivers. They can insure your own car, but they also offer specialist learner insurance. So what makes it special? Well, normally, if you want to drive a friend or family member's car, you would have to get insured on their policy. Therefore, they are now liable for any claims you make, and they could have spent years building up a no claims bonus for cheap insurance. But Marmalade offers dual insurance, which keeps your supervisor's policy separate and safe if you were to make a claim. You can insure from as little as £1.23 per day, and this policy can be used on your driving test. If you purchase a policy via the link in the description of this video below, Conquer Driving will receive a small commission which will go towards making higher quality videos. However, using the link is completely free. Now, back to the manoeuvre. To pass the driving test, you need to fulfill three main responsibilities: awareness, control, and accuracy. To fulfill awareness, you need to notice any vehicles, that includes pedestrians as well, so pedestrians, cyclists, cars, trucks, you name it, you need to see them before they manage to reach you. To fulfill control, you need to make sure the car is at a suitable speed at all times. So if you shoot backwards suddenly or hit the curb, then you'll likely fail the test. And to fulfill accuracy, well, actually, they're quite lenient on accuracy. They don't expect you to be a precision driver and be able to park 3 centimetres from the curb every time. As long as you get within half a metre or so from the curb, you'd normally pass. The driving examiners don't care which method you use to complete the manoeuvre. You will find most different driving instructors have their own methods to help teach this exercise. But as long as you maintain a good awareness and good control and complete the manoeuvre to a degree of accuracy, you will pass. Now that's the basic overview of what's expected of you. Now I'm going to go into detail on how you can fulfill these three main responsibilities. I will start with accuracy. I'm going to firstly show you how to reliably get into the space. When you know how to do that, then you can worry about what observations you need to make. Firstly, you need a space at least 1.5 times the length of your car. Any smaller than that, and you need to be quite experienced and very skilled to get the car into the space. If you're new to this, just find the biggest space you can, because easy leads to success, and success leads to confidence. The first thing you need to do is stop next to the car you want to park behind. Try to stop relatively close to it, but not so close that you can't open the door. It's important not to be further forward than the target car, as you may hit it when you steer. It's okay to be further back, but you will need a bigger space. It's best that the rear of both of the cars are lined up as close as possible. Now you have a good start position, there's just 3 steps you need to follow to get into the space. Angle on, get there, as in get near the curb, and then angle off. For angle on, steer fully to the left whilst the car is stationary. Yes, I said whilst the car is stationary. Now I know you may have heard that you should never steer when the car is stationary because that's dry steering and that's bad. In fact, I've done a whole other video on dry steering which I'll link to in the description. Personally, I don't think dry steering is very bad if done correctly. I've had this car for 144,000 miles and my steering still works fine and my suspension still works fine. Also, my tyres last for ages, so why make it harder? Anyway, back to the manoeuvre. Now that you're fully turned left, slowly move the car back to add some angle. You want your angle to be somewhere between here and here. Make sure you don't go beyond 45 degrees as you will get stuck. However, the closer your angle is to 45 degrees, the smaller the space you will be able to get into. After angle on, the next step is get there, or get to the curb. So straighten the wheels as you want to come back in a straight line. Then slowly move the car backwards until you're near the curb. I'll show you how to judge this later. Now you have completed angle on and get there, the final step is angle off. To take the angle off, steer all the way to the right, then move back slowly until you are straight with the curb. When you're finished, remember to straighten your wheels, although this is not a test fail if you don't. And there you go, parked. Well, I know it's all well and good being able to do it from a bird's eye view. Doing it from inside the car is a altogether more challenging task because it's very hard to judge where you are. So first thing to judge is your start position. Try to stop relatively close to the car but with enough distance that you can open the door. Most people seem to be able to do this fine without much help from me. It doesn't really matter if you're a little bit far, you just need a slightly bigger space to reverse into. How far forward you need to be is a little trickier, however, because you want the back of both the cars lined up and it can be hard to see this. So best to line the wing mirrors up, and if the car is a similar length, you will be close enough. If the other car is longer than you, try lining your wing mirror up further back for safety. Remember, it's okay to be slightly further back, but you don't want to be any further forwards. I judge my angle on by looking forwards, as this gives you a good view of your angle. If you're looking backwards, you won't see your angle. At the moment I'm pointing straight, but I want to be pointing less than halfway to the right, which is about here. This angle, however, would be too small, and this angle would be too big. An angle that's too big will get you stuck, or you may hit the curb. An angle that's too small, however, will get you in the space, albeit you will need a bigger space. So it's best to be conservative with how much angle you add. With years of practice, you'll get excellent at judging your angle and be able to get into tiny spaces. But for your driving test, you have a very big space because we don't expect you to have amazing accuracy for the learner test. The wing mirror in my car automatically lowers when you put it in reverse. If your car doesn't, I recommend lowering your wing mirror to help you get a better view of the curb and to save you stretching your head up towards the roof of the car to get a better view. Moving on, now I need to straighten the wheel and get near the curb. To judge when I'm near the curb, I'll look in the curbside mirror, as you can see here. Now I'm close, you can see there's a small triangle of road in the mirror. The bottom of that triangle is roughly how far you will be when you finish. Although it will shrink a little. The more angle you had on, the more it will shrink when you take the angle off, so leave yourself a reasonable gap. I recommend leaving about a drain's width from the curb when you're trying to park. That way, if you get a little bit closer, you're not going to hit the curb, and if you get a little bit further, you will still be close enough to pass. Now I will steer all the way to the right whilst the car is stationary, then come back until I'm parallel to the curb. Whilst I'm coming back, I'll make sure the nose of my car is not going to hit the parked car in front of me. But unless you got more than 45 degrees of angle or started too far forwards, this is unlikely. You can see you're parallel to the curb in the curbside mirror. This is an example of not parallel to the curb, as you can see the car and the curb are at an angle. But now I've gone back a little further, you can see the angle is gone. Remember to straighten the wheel when you're finished. If you struggle to judge how to tell if the wheels are straight, remember to count how many times you turn the wheel. So with the wheel straight, turn all the way to the left or the right and count how many turns it took to get the wheel fully turned. So I'm going to turn to the right, that's one turn, I'll keep turning, and then that's about 0.3, that's fully turned. So now I know it's 1.3 to go from straight to fully turn to the right. To go back to straight, simply take that 0.3 off and then take that whole one turn off, so that's 1.3 in total, and now I know I'm straight. And to test if I'm straight, I can put it in first gear and move a little bit and see if it goes straight, and it does go straight, so now I know it's straight. Most cars are between 1 and 1.6 turns to go from straight to fully turned, or obviously from fully turned back to straight again. I recommend staying stationary when you steer to make sure you don't get too much angle or get too close to the curb. I mean, let's say you just put your angle on and you decide to straighten the wheel, so you don't want to add any more angle. But as you're straightening the wheel, you're still moving, you're still adding angle as you're straightening the wheel, so you're going to have more angle than you want. And the same is true when you get near the curb. As you turn the wheel, you're going to get closer to the curb than you want. So if you're stationary, the car will stay in the same place whilst you do your steering. Despite what you may have heard, you will not fail the driving test for steering without moving. My customers haven't even got so much as a minor driving fault for doing this. Now it's time to move on to awareness. And the trouble with trying to be aware when you're trying to do the parallel park is that when you're trying to look round to see what's coming, that takes your eye off of the parallel park. It takes your eye off of your angle and how close you are to the curb, so you're more likely to get it wrong. So what I recommend you do is stop at each step. So stop when you get in your start position, then look round. Stop when you've got your angle, then look round. Stop when you're close to the curb, then look round. Stop after your angle, then you're finished. If you look every time you stop at each stage, that should be enough for you to notice what's coming towards you before it gets to you. If, however, you feel you're taking a long time on a particular section of the manoeuvre, it's best just to pause and have a look round again to make sure no one's catching up with you. Because remember, your responsibility is to notice someone before they get close to you. If you are getting in their way, such as in this example, you must stop and give way. They may drive past, or they may wait for you to finish. Either way, the choice is theirs and not yours. If you're not getting in the way, as in this example, you can continue. Here is an example of all the observations I make when I park. Well, I'll start by checking behind me and checking my blind spot before I move away. And I'll pull up alongside this grey Citroen. I'll check my centre left mirror before I do so to see if I need a signal to say I'm stopping. And I'll stop in a good starting position, about here, into reverse. And I'll check both shoulders in my mirrors to make sure no one's walking and coming up behind. There's someone in front, but he's waiting. So I'm going to come back until I've got my angle. I'm now going to stop at my angle and straighten the wheel. And now I'm going to check both shoulders again and my mirrors to make sure no one's walking behind or coming up behind again. The person in front is still waiting. So now I'll come back until I'm near the curb, looking at the mirror. And I'll stop again and check both shoulders and the mirrors again to make sure it's okay. There's a car coming up behind, but I'm actually getting out of their way now. So I'll continue back now until the car is in line with the curb. The car's driving past me now. I'm now in line with the curb, so I'll straighten the wheel and I'm done. Now I've explained accuracy and awareness, there's just one responsibility left I need to cover, and that's control. Except I'm not going to give much advice at all about control, simply because I don't believe you should be trying to learn how to reverse before you've learned how to control the car. It's better to learn how to drive first and get good at driving and leave reversing to the end of your training. In my early years as a driving instructor, I used to think it was a great idea to teach reversing at the beginning of the training. I thought, that's lots of clutch control, that's going to give my customers loads of time to learn how to control the car. But I was wrong, and I was wrong because it's just too hard. They couldn't focus on clutch control or the manoeuvre. They were trying to focus on too many things, so they didn't really learn much at all. They just got frustrated and they ended up dreading reversing because they remembered it being so hard. However, once I started leaving reversing to the end of the training, control was never an issue, and I managed to actually teach most of the reversing exercises in about 2 lessons, and then the reversing well. So leave reversing until you're good at driving forwards. I will say one thing, however. Keep the car really slow. Keep it about a quarter of walking speed. That way, you'll have a lot more time to think about what you're doing. Also, be aware of the camber. The road is a camber. Normally it's a hump in the middle, but sometimes it slopes to the left or the right. This is to help drainage when it rains. However, it also creates a hill, which is a problem when you're trying to reverse. So bear in mind, as you're reversing, the speed may change because of the hill, so make sure you're ready for it. It's important to know that you don't get one attempt at reversing. So if you're on your driving test and you get yourself in a little bit of a pickle, what you can do is start again. You can start the manoeuvre again and you can correct it. Here are some examples of common ways people get this manoeuvre wrong and how you can correct it. Let's say you're putting on your angle and you've noticed you've put on more than 45 degrees. Don't continue. If you have too much angle, you'll most likely hit the curb, and it's actually quite an easy fix. Simply put the car in the first gear and go back where you came from slightly to reduce your angle. Then straighten the wheels, select reverse, and come back towards the curb. If you then realise you have got too close to the curb, again, don't panic, don't continue, or you'll hit the curb. Just put it into first gear and go forward slightly to increase your distance. Then select reverse gear again and take the angle off. If you touch the curb with the front wheels as you're taking the angle off, the same thing applies. Put it into first gear and go back where you came slightly. When you're straight, straighten the wheels and you're done. You won't fail for touching the curb gently, but you will fail for touching the curb hard or hitting the curb. And where you draw the line on what is considered hard and not hard, well, that comes down to the examiner. Most examiners have their own perception of what's too hard and what's not, but it's fairly similar. A good rule of thumb is if it feels harsh or maybe slightly violent, then it's a fail. But if you touch the curb gently, then you'll be fine. That's why it's so important to stay slow. That way, if you do touch the curb, it will be at a low speed, you'll notice, and it won't be a problem. Also, you won't damage your wheels. If, however, you get yourself into a real pickle and you end up wedged between the car and the curb, make sure you don't hit the car or the curb. It's best to start again. But when you return to your start position, make sure you don't stay too close to the car. Try and come out and leave yourself some room. You may have to drive past the car to give yourself time to straighten up, but don't worry, you can always reverse back a little bit to your start position. But if you find that you touch the curb with the rear wheels and you have space in front of you to move forwards, an easy fix is to steer all the way to the left and then pull forwards to tuck the nose in. When the nose is in, straighten the wheels and you're done. The angle on, get close, angle off method also works in car parks, but I'll leave that to another video. Anyway, that's all for this one. I hope it helps. I'd like to hear what you think in the comments about it. Like if you like it, like if you dislike it, and subscribe if you want to get my future videos.